Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about browser and application artifacts. And this will be relatively brief, but it is important to kind of talk about this and know about it. So browser artifacts, you can have browser history, you can have your bookmarks, you can have your cache, cookies, downloads, auto-filled or saved passwords, things of that nature. So modern browsers all store all of this. In fact, older browsers still had quite a bit of this information, maybe not the autofill part, but cache, browsing history, cookies, bookmarks, those were all part of functional browsers. So your browser history will be everything from like what URL you visited, the page title, how many times you visited that, last time you visited it. Current browsers, they largely seem to store them in SQLite databases, and they don't tend to automatically clear those, but there's usually tools inside of the browser to clear your history, and same with clearing your cookies and your cache. Bookmarks, that'll be a saved URL with title, date, folder structure, has information like I have a lot of bookmarks when building this class out to record all sorts of sites which have relevant digital artifacts to look at, or drive like drive captures, drive images, that sort of stuff. Your cache, anytime that you go to a web page, typically it's going to save a copy of relevant information, so images, scripts, that sort of stuff. That way, the next time you go to the page, it loads it up quicker. This can be used to analyze if someone has visited a specific website, or how often they have, or what version of that site they actually visited. It can be cleared, but depending upon who it is and whether or not they had control of their computer at that time, it may still have relevant information. Cookies will have session tokens, credentials, all sorts of stuff. With the change in international laws, users are starting to become more and more aware of cookies and information that's being stored with the cookies, because every time that you go to a website now, it tends to ask if they can store information and what information they can store. And some users, they just click always allow. Other users like to turn off certain things, except for things that are required. But a lot of users are more notified of various cookies that a website may store. But that being said, there still may be quite a lot of relevant information in there, because session information could have everything from the timestamp as to when they visited that site to what their entry point and exit point was, things of that nature. Downloads, same thing. It's there's a lot of times where it will store a copy of your download list or downloaded files, and show the URL that it came from. As we already saw, Windows keeps that in that zone identifier alternate data stream, so you can, that's usually a little bit more reliable than just using the download list from a browser, but there still may be forensically relevant information in there. And then auto-saved or auto-filled or saved information. A lot of people will fill out a form and then tell it to save that information, so the next time they have to fill out the form, they don't have to input all of that information again. It's a great time saver, but it also leaks quite a bit of information. So there could be very sensitive information in some of those forms, and that could be forensically relevant to whatever you're doing. So Chrome, Edge, which is built off of Chromium, typically will save everything in SQLite databases, and they all pretty much exist under the app data location for that profile, under local Google Chrome user data, and then under either default or the specific profile. Kind of depends a little bit. Downloads is included in the history SQLite on a downloads table. Firefox will store it under its own roaming Mozilla Firefox profiles, and then profile specific location.
Mic off. Mic on.
Downloads are stored in the places.sqlite. Passwords are stored in the logins.json inside of the key4.db. It is encrypted with a master password, but depending upon the user, that may not be that difficult to figure out or to determine. So querying, you can copy the entire database because, well, it gets locked when the browser is open. And then you can use SQLite to select from that particular database and view information. Same with listening to downloads or querying the Firefox history or even exporting all the cookies. There's lots of ways of doing all of this, but SQLite, if you're not familiar with SQLite or databases, well, you should definitely get a little familiar with SQLite and databases because that's quite important. So, like I said, most browsers will store it in a SQLite format, and it's a useful tool to analyze them. Talking about application artifacts, Microsoft Outlook in the past with a Outlook Outlook application, it would create copies of your PST, which is your mailbox or OST file, and it would have all of that information. And there have been times where I had to do an analysis on a PST or an OST file and identify certain emails to export for some e-discovery purpose. These days, most of that is handled by an administrator because things are stored in the cloud. And so an administrator would generally export the mailbox into a PST or OST format and then provide that for analysis. There are automated tools out there which make this so much easier and so much nicer. They aren't always free, but they will simplify a lot of it and still do it in a forensically sound manner. So if you have to go looking through email and looking at that, making sure that you have the right utility to analyze it is important. But looking at the email headers, the timestamps, message ID, attachments, everything else, that's really important. Mozilla Thunderbird, which is another email client, that'll store it locally under the roaming Thunderbird profile main or mail folder, and it will have a lot of the same information, and it will also be stored in SQLite formats. And then finally, you'll have the Microsoft Teams, you'll have Slack, WhatsApp, all sorts of other ones. They'll store them in different database formats, and different analysis and different tools will be able to look through those, which makes it quite a bit easier. So private browsing, incognito, as we all know, doesn't actually make everything private. All it does is doesn't store that information in the browser history, doesn't save the cookies, doesn't save the form autofills or passwords. Ultimately, anybody looking at the network traffic will still be able to see it. If you're looking at the DNS cache, which you can look at an OS level, it'll show the visited domains, it will show the DNS information. Downloaded files will still appear downloaded because, well, they were downloaded. Prefetch will still list Chrome as it was launched. RAM forensics, looking at the active memory dump, will also show all of the information anyway. So incognito is really just if you don't want to have a browser history on that local computer, but that's about it. It's not really truly incognito, as we all pretty much know, but I'm still just reiterating that just in case. So other browser history recovery methods, so like I said, SQLite, there's the write-ahead logs, which contain recently deleted records, so that may be useful, especially if someone goes through and clears their cache. Autopsy can recover it from unallocated space, so again, this is why if someone goes through and wipes all of that, you want to shut down the system and capture the drive right away before it gets overwritten, because file carving, autopsy can recover it, all sorts of other methods could recover a lot of that information that can then be analyzed. The Windows page file sys and Hyper file sys may contain the session data. So page file is basically your swap location in Windows. Hyper file is your hibernation file. So when the computer goes into hibernation state, it dumps RAM into that particular file, and that may have useful information that could be forensically relevant. So takeaways: browser history, downloads, cookies, cache contents. Most of the time it's SQLite databases. And you can use SQLite 3. And I would encourage you to download and install SQLite 3, create a copy of those databases, and then just start poking around in there to see what exactly is in that. Download records, prove a file was acquired from the web. Usually that would be either from the browser, or the zone identifier will, if that is persistent on there because it's an NTFS system, will list the URL that it came from. Email clients retain deleted messages until it gets compacted. So a lot of times you can recover from deleted message. Incognito mode is not really incognito, it's just there. And then autopsy, which is another digital forensics tool, can be used to extract all sorts of information from forensics images.